At 6 o'clock, I will call the October 26, 2021 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. This evening, we have Pastor Andrew Davis from Fellowship Baptist Church to offer invocation. If you would, please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious Father, may we never lose sight of the privilege and honor that is ours to govern as we do. Lord, there's a lot of people in this world that can't do what we're doing tonight. May we always be thankful. And Lord, may we always approach it with the desire to have wisdom and guidance and humility as we approach these issues that affect a lot of people. We're divided as a nation, and we desperately need your help. I thank you, Lord, for everyone that's here. I thank you, Lord, for every elected official. I thank you for those that lead us and help us, Lord. But also, Lord, I understand completely that we bow to the will of our sovereign God, Creator. And Lord, as we do so, may we listen to your wisdom and live according to your word. Help us tonight, we pray, to conduct your business in the way that would please you. In Jesus' name we ask these things. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will note for the record, this evening Supervisor Cook has joined us on the phone. Mr. Cook, can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I sure can.
Thank you, sir. First item on the agenda, we have a presentation of a retirement plaque. Once I figured out who this was, Miss Serena Jackson, or she's known by 99.9% of the people in Wythe County, Randy. Come on up. Ms. Jackson retired from the Commonwealth Attorney's Office earlier this year. And I don't know what your official job title was besides Jack of all trades. Except for having that law license and going to court, I think you've done a little bit of everything. So, presented to Serena Jackson in appreciation of 15 years of service from 2006 to 2021 from the Wythe County Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and on behalf of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors, we certainly appreciate your service. We gave you something to make you cry later.
Is that the note that says she has to come back to work?
That's also your part-time schedule if you want to come. But all joking aside, Rainey, I don't know how many Commonwealth attorneys you work for, but two. If you ever needed anything from a Commonwealth attorney, you knew that one phone call to make. She knew everything. Dedicated employee, and it's a shame you didn't stick around for another 20 years. But
Well, I just want to be me mom now.
Probably a lot harder job. So, but thank you.
Congratulations.
Next item on our agenda, citizens' time. As always, each citizen signs up, gets 3 minutes. Ms. Lawson will keep the time. The first person we have on the list is Dave Johnston.
Thank you, Chair. Scott, maybe you can help me out on this one. What is, in the law book, dereliction of duty?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
All right, what about impeding?
Mr. Johnston, this is your 3 minutes to address
Well, or
us.
impeding obstruction of justice.
I'll let you talk to the board and then I'll help them by doing research later.
Like, if I'm having problems in the town, and the town will not address it, who is supposed to address it besides the town?
We have no control over the town.
Well, but Wythe County is in Wytheville.
That's correct.
So if the town's not gonna solve the problems, or don't wanna do anything about the problems, excuse me, Mrs. Mayor, where's it go to?
That's a good question. But I would assume circuit court, Mr. Farthing, am I?
Yeah, it's your representatives on the council, your individual council members, or file some kind of action against the town if you have standing to do so.
Well, every lawyer I talked to says, we're not gonna bring anything against the town. I mean, I've talked to our Commonwealth attorney, I've talked to everybody. You know, I've even gone as far as the AG's office for Richmond. Our attorney general says, if a town don't wanna handle it, the county don't wanna handle it, then you go to the federal level. And by me being a citizen of Wytheville and a citizen of Wythe County, I don't wanna make any of my friends here mad or anything like that. I just want the issue resolved before we have to go that way.
Well, like I said, we have no authority over the town of Wytheville or the town of Retreat. I got a call earlier, or last week actually, about some concerns in the town of Retreat, and not to pass the buck, but, you know, refer them to town council because that's who regulates. We only have the power that the Code of Virginia gives us
Well,
in Virginia.
and Virginia gives the county the code of power to service, public servant, protect and serve. Is that not right?
Not what you're talking about. We have no authority over the town. That's,
All right, so if I got a next door neighbor like lives across the street from me, and he shoots a guy on the upper corner block, and we got a school resource officer, which, don't offend me, y'all, I answered this for me about 3 years ago. You got to be a sworn-in deputy to be a school resource officer, right? If this is in two houses of our deputy, and he don't do anything, where's it go to?
you're talking about criminal law versus civil law. That's,
Well, criminal law was the same thing as tearing down a right-of-way fence line or a property line. If it was in the county to begin with, then the town annexed it. Well, according to a federal judge in Roanoke, and according to a federal lawyer in Roanoke, you can't tear down that property line. You can't tear down a right-of-way line if it had cattle going against it at one time or other. Well, it was in the county until the town annexed it. But we got a couple of people now that wanna tear it down. The town's done made the guy survey it 3 times, and each time he's gone back and pulled up the deed markers, property markers. And I got all the pictures on that and everything else, but the town's still letting him get by with it. And Joe Hash knows it. He went to the mayor back here with us. Pardon me, Madam Mayor.
We're at 4 minutes, Chair.
And Mayor, you know, she said, ain't nothing we can do. Joe said, ain't nothing I can do because they won't let me. So, I mean, so where does the law come in effect here?
well, like I've answered your question as best as I know how. We have no authority over town of Wytheville. You can go talk to them at circuit court, you can go talk to them at federal court, but the 7 individuals or 6 individuals sitting up here and the one on the phone, there's nothing we can do to help you.
So say it happens, this what happened right in front of Bird's house, or 2 blocks from Bird, and he lives in town, ain't nothing he can do nothing about it?
As I told you, you're talking about civil law versus criminal law. So you've had your time.
Well, now,
Thank you,
Corey
sir.
Charles, he's the number one law enforcement officer, the number one officer of Wythe County. So.
Have a good night, Mr. Johnson. That's all we had signed up to speak on citizens' time, so I'll close citizens' time. The next item on the agenda is the payment of invoices. Each member has received a copy of the invoices. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make it.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. McRoberts and a second by Mr. Smith. Is that correct? Is there any discussion or any invoice that anybody wants to pull out? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook, I'll begin with you.
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of our previous meeting from October the 12th, 2021. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Horny. Is there any corrections, additions, or deletions for the minutes? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Next item on the agenda is old business. Mr. Baird, do you have anything under old business?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, I do not.
Mr. Hankins, do you have anything? No, sir. So we'll move on to reports. Have a treasurer report. Miss Gwen, I seen you earlier. Before you get started, I want to say thank you for not sending tax tickets out on my birthday this year. Waiting a week.
Well, believe me, I tried to get them to you before you had the opportunity to spend all of your birthday money, but it just didn't quite work out. But I'll kind of address all that here in a moment. We'll go over the financial information first, and then I'll backtrack to a few items that I was going to update you folks on. So in your board packet for tonight, the consolidated account contains a balance of $61,933,341. The general fund balance that is included within that has a balance, again, as of the end of September, of $38,284,722. So we're still in good shape. Interest rates are the pits, but other than that, we're doing well. October, you'll really see numbers start changing, especially after Mr. Vaught pays his taxes. Are there
Last day.
And the payment box. Are there any questions on the financial statements at this point?
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Gwen?
Okay, well, I know the rest of you got excited as well when you received your bills. Everybody got excited. Actually, I did too. They were in a day earlier than I thought they were gonna be, but we ran into a few problems. When I was here last month, I was in the process of pulling the files, send them to the printers, and idealistically, the bills should have gone out by the end of that week. Us and many other localities in Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia that have the same computer system had file issues when they went to the printers. So with every locality, and this is based on the information I've been given, so every locality, one file would process through perfectly fine with the printers, which our personal property file I sent through first because it's the largest. All the localities' second file did not process through as it should. So I started getting antsy. I kind of started pitching a fit, and then it became a little beyond kind of pitching a fit. And my sales rep, I kept calling him, and finally I think he got tired of a couple of emails a day and phone calls a day. And so, of course, he had been staying in touch with the programmers at the printers. Finally, they admitted to him that the files were timing out when they were trying to upload them, and explained the situation that all of these localities, all of us were having issues, that they were having trouble with our files. So they finally broke it down, did the process a little bit different. I finally got proofs in, so I approved real estate proofs actually just last Tuesday morning, I guess. They hoped to get them mailed on Wednesday, but it ended up being Thursday, and I was very excited when they got back in the county on Friday because I anticipated with the mail delays that it would be Saturday. So we're a few weeks later than I had hoped to be. We were actually ahead of schedule. Ms. Vaught had completed everything on her end. My office had worked really hard on our end, and I was still late, but I guess better late than never. But we still have a lot of time until the due date, so I think everything will be okay going forward. But I'm hoping we don't have this issue again, but it apparently is a Tyler Munis issue across the board, so that's something that we're all going to have to address, I think collectively with Munis, so that that doesn't happen again with our printers. And my sales rep had actually spoken to another locality that was with another company, and they were having some of the same problems as well. So I think it's a software thing that has to be resolved. So we'll see how that goes. Those experiences aren't the best, but we'll see what happens with that. So staying on the line of taxes, of course, coming up, just to let you all know at this point, we will have extended office hours the last week of November, which will be the week between Thanksgiving and the due date. We always stay open until 6, and then we'll offer hours, Saturday hours on December the 4th. We're generally open a half a day. That gives folks a chance to come in if they so choose. We don't have a lot of people that come in, but it's also a catch-up day for us on our mail processing and things like that. So that's kind of where we are with taxes. We knew, Friday morning they were out because when the phones cut off of the night ring at 8:30, we were getting calls. So we've kind of been nonstop since, but that's a good thing. That's why we're here. That's why we're in that office. So the only other thing that I had, and I meant to mention this at the last meeting, and I was so excited to be leaving to go pull a tax file to make everybody's day that I really forgot. But this is something that I'm very proud of, not just for myself, but for my office, for the county. I think it says a lot about the Treasurer's Office. But through the Treasurers Association of Virginia, we have a program that's called Office Accreditation. And within the Treasurer's offices, you have to have certain policies, like on collections, customer service, a personnel policy in place, which everyone has. But you also have to have clean audits, both with the state auditor and your local auditors. You have to have 2 years of clean audits. Your tax collection rates have to be at a certain percentage. Real estate can be at no less than 95%, personal property at no less than 20%, and that's over a 12-month period following your last due date. So in applying for this accreditation for this year, this was based on 2019 tax collections. Well, I am proud to say the Wythe County Treasurer's Office has achieved office accreditation through the Treasurers Association. So this is the first time ever that this office has had this. So I'm extremely proud. To a lot of people it's a plaque, but it's a lot more than a plaque. But like I said, it says a lot for my staff. So just wanted to make you all aware of that. We're trying to do all we can and then some, but some days I'm not sure if we're meeting that goal or not, but we try our best. So
You're doing awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions on anything or anything with taxes, or
I don't have
if your bill was too high, Mrs. Vaught is sitting right there. She'll be glad to address that.
Send them across the hall. That's why that floor's wore out.
That's why I had to change the doors. I had to change my indoor to the outdoor and the out to the in because it was to the point that Billy and his guys were going to have to replace the flooring from door to door if we didn't switch them around a little bit. So
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you
and
all.
your staff.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, Lord.
Next item is new business. The first item is Apex report, Ms. Gilman. I thought I seen you back there.
Good evening, Chairman Vaught, Vice Chairwoman Lawson, and all of the Board of Supervisors. I thank you for taking this time to let me give you an update on our Apex happenings. I think you have most of it in your packet. The first thing was the Virginia Lamb and Goat. I didn't have that the last time I was here. The lady did get it to me. It was in June. This was sponsored by Virginia Tech, and she made a list of where all of the participants came from and how many from each county were there. There were 72 youth in all. They were between the ages of 9 and 19, and they were 4-H and FFA members. So that was a good turnout for that, and we hope to have them back this year. They missed 2020 because of what was going on. The second item I have happened in August, and I don't have a sheet on that. I had one, and I misplaced it. I called Jenna, who keeps everything. She couldn't find hers. But she called me this afternoon, and she said, I found mine on Facebook. So that was the RC cars that came in August. He had 13 states represented. They were North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Florida, West Virginia, Ohio, Maryland, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Texas, Wisconsin, and Georgia. 150 cars competed, and there were over 200 people in attendance, and they were people that were with the people because it's not a spectator event. He had 50 RVs. Some stayed there as dry camped. Some went to local campgrounds. And he had numerous people staying in local hotels at Exit 80 and also in Wythe. And they did have some tent people because it was warmer back then. So, they will be there this weekend. It's the Blue Ridge National 3. He's expecting over 200 cars this weekend. They're down there now working on the track. If you've never been, you can walk in. They welcome people to come watch. It's amazing how fast those little cars go, and they make as much dust as the monster trucks do. And he was at our meeting the other day, and he told us he was one of the first events that came to the Apex Center. And with his first event, he only had 75 cars there, so he has grown every year that he has one. And he would like to do more than just 2. And I think you have this. This was in the Enterprise. And my neighbor shared it with me, and it says, Apex keeps events local. Very good article for us. And it also went with the St. Jude's rodeo. And very, very nice article if you have time to read it. I didn't make the St. Jude's, but I heard that it was very well attended, that the Saturday night and Sunday was almost packed. I think that was like local barrel racing, and I think they got a lot of money to go towards St. Jude's. The very last thing, but not the least, is our up-to-date calendar. We have what's left in 2021, and then if you look at the 2022 calendar, you can see our January, February is booked about every weekend with a large event. We hope to keep adding and making our whole calendar next year look like this. We are doing some cold calls to events that are around us, trying to get them to come visit our facility, if nothing else, to see if they would be interested in coming. And I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions, or are you getting our stuff from Jenna like you're supposed to, or minutes and all? Okay.
We get them our package. The Showmasters Gun Show, is that the one that relocated from Salem and Roanoke because they passed the ordinance where you couldn't have firearms?
Right. So we're excited to have.
That was a good snag.
I think Mr. Litton snagged that for us.
I thought it was the same group, but I wasn't sure.
Well, in fact, we had a guy came in last weekend. Let's see, we had our meeting last Tuesday, didn't we? He traveled 3 hours to come to the Apex Center to attend the gun show. He looked at the wrong date. He was not happy, but so hopefully he'll come back when it is time for it to be. But that's, I hope that's a good view that somebody drove 3 hours to come, and so hopefully when we do have it, they'll drive that far again.
So just for everybody in the audience that didn't get a copy of this, January the 15th and 16th is the Showmasters Gun Show.
Right. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Gilman?
I'll just add to the gun show, if you go the weekend before, the Eastern Predator Column, you will have, the DNA folks, I'm sure, will be back with their booth. So if you're interested in DNA firearms, they'll be there. They're out of Georgia, and they were there last time.
It's a shame the gun show wasn't before the taxes are due.
Well, you could just take the delay.
No, I don't think so. Does anybody else have anything for Ms. Gilman?
I do not, but thank you for the update.
Thank you all so much, too. Appreciate it.
And Mr. Ayers, it's good to see you.
Sorry.
I said it's good to see you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Enterprise Zone Amendment. Mr. Matthews.
Hope everybody's doing well today. I've got a handout for you. I'll get passed around. So towards the end of every year, we try to consider properties and projects that could be included in the enterprise zone. Whenever that boundary amendment changes, it includes whatever those new properties we've added back to the beginning of the year. So we've got a business that is looking to get their certificate of occupancy before the end of the year. Timeline is still a little bit questionable on that, but we're doing our best to acknowledge the request and see what we might be able to do to put an enterprise zone boundary amendment in for the social house. That's the first one that's listed on there for under the add section. That would allow them to be eligible for enterprise zone incentives and to make application to the state for the real property improvement grant. And because we cannot submit an application with just one project, the second one that you see there is for the DMV Shopping Plaza. We've talked to the folks that own that property. They're working to secure a retailer for that large space in the center of the plaza, and their intent is to make improvements to it. They would hope to be eligible to apply for the real property improvement grant from the state as well. So overall, we have 3,800 acres that we can play with throughout the county to decide where we want growth to happen. Currently, we've got almost 3,500 of those acres in use. The two added properties would be just over 14 acres. You can see there where it would leave us. We've also talked about possible deletions. One of the things that we're mindful of is spot zoning. It's not something that we're fond of, but we've already set a precedent. We're hoping to take steps to change that in the future, to drive growth towards the zones that we've laid out. But these properties have already received the incentives that they would be eligible for. So we're happy to do whatever the pleasure of the board is. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Matthews? I've got one question. Is there anything out in the county that qualifies? I mean, you're wanting to add two properties, or both in the town of Westfield.
Sure.
I mean, we've got on the western end, I know Dutch Pantry, remodeled, done an addition. The gentleman that owns the gas station there, he's doing some kind of project. I mean, is there nothing out in either end of the county that we can't add to help these folks out?
So we've taken a look at around the interstate junctions, I know going east. And I don't think in our conversations, the Rural Retreat properties, the Dutch Pantry and the gas station off of the interstate have been a part of that. I'm trying to scroll real quick to see where they're at. I'm happy to add any properties that you guys are interested in. I think one of the things that we do want to be mindful of is the future connector road. We anticipate probably having to do a look at the overall footprint of the enterprise zone down the road and reallocate zone acreage towards that, but that can happen at a later date, obviously. But we've got plenty of room to play with for several businesses on this application if you guys are interested. I don't know certificate of occupancy dates for either of those properties to know when they would have been eligible. So if it happened this year, we could certainly get them in.
Mr. Baird, do you have anything to add?
No, when I spoke with John, I said Mr. Matthews, I said the same thing. I think it's critical that we do keep some of our acreage available and look definitely at the connector road and some other projects that might be out there. And secondly, I would ask that next year that we go ahead and set a time frame in August that we come back and talk to the Economic Development Committee about this beforehand. So, and board members, so, you know, projects like the Dutch Pantry and some of those can be looked at and determined, you know, that are close proximity to enterprise zones that are already set up there. If we add acreage to those, it just needs to be a little bit better process than the last minute addition. So I think we can start that, put something on the calendar that by next August, we're talking about these, and then spend a couple months reviewing them and set the public hearing for the end of the year.
Well, and it's not, you know, I don't think it's fair to us to spring this on us at the end of October, and you've got 7 people representing the whole county that, you know, I don't have time to go out here and look at the certificate of occupancy for Dutch Pantry, for example, when we've got to have a public hearing and have this passed by the end of the year. So I think the August deadline would give us more time to kind of think about what areas we'd like to add. But I mean, I know there's some growth on Mr. Smith and Mr. McRoberts' end of the county that they'd probably like to have included as possible. So, do we need to take action now, or do we just need to?
No action
public
needed
hearing?
now. Public hearing is scheduled for November 9th, I believe, and then we will need to take action after that before the end of the year to add these in, correct? Mr. Matthews?
Does anybody else have anything for Mr. Matthews?
About the deletions, so there's not any issue to delete those. That's a pretty common thing in the past.
Correct.
I don't recall, so, okay.
So, I don't know, probably 7 years ago was the first time that they expanded the enterprise zone outside of Progress Park and taken a look at downtown and the interstate interchanges. And the only deletion that has taken place in that time has been for the Apex Center. So after you guys got a hold of the property, government entities aren't eligible for the incentives, so it didn't make sense to tie that property up. So this is the first time that I'll be going through the deletion process for privately owned land.
Okay, thank you.
And if anyone wants to look at the map of our enterprise zones on our GIS website, under the administrative tab, there is an enterprise zone, and it'll show you all the enterprise zones. Obviously, Progress Park is the largest. We've got pretty much some zones at each of our exit areas. And then obviously we added the entire downtown area probably 4 or 5 years ago.
It was already in before I got here, so at least 6, 7.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank
Mr. Baird,
you.
will you work with the Economic Development Committee to come up with a concrete date?
Will do.
use in the future. Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Horning, have a second.
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion about the consent calendar? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook, I'll start with you, sir.
Aye.
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 Aye. So approved. Next item on the agenda is the Gov Deals vehicle auction.
I'll turn this over to Ms. Collins.
We're gonna send you to auctioneer school.
I obviously didn't leave myself a copy, but that's all right. This has been a great day. 5 vehicles that we auctioned on Gov Deals, and I just recommend to approve the high bid.
Entertain a motion to accept the high bids on the 5 vehicles from govdeals.com.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. McRoberts. Is there any questions or discussion? I will say that you can tell used vehicle prices are up. Do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, Ms. Collins has 2 additional vehicles, and she said today's been a bad day. The results weren't coming in on those, and she realized it's because somehow she inadvertently put the 28th as the date instead of the 26th. So those will not come in for 2 more days. Would you be interested in going ahead and declaring those 2 vehicles surplus, and when Ms. Collins closes out her Gov deals on it, that we go ahead and sell those to the highest bidder also?
Are they going for more than $100?
We'll put that as a limit. How's that?
I don't have a problem with it.
500 was minimum bid.
Oh,
They're both 2007 models, one's Silverado and one's Colorado. And I think they both are about $1,500 right now. It'll probably go up between now and Thursday.
I don't have a problem. Does anybody?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the high bids on those vehicles on the 28th.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
So approved.
Thank you.
Hope your tomorrow's better, Ms. Cobb. Next item is Sheriff's Office requests. Sheriff Foster, you want to come up and do these, or?
It's not, I can explain to you what it is, it's not in there.
That's called putting you on the spot.
I noticed that.
This is basically just e-ticket request, permits that have to be, afforded to the office every year. And then the electronic ticket summonses is actually for the licensing for the deputies to use the product.
Back up and do the first one we got on the agenda, if you don't mind.
The
Sheriff,
concealed
and that's
weapon.
the,
Oh, I didn't see it.
CWP, the concealed weapons.
Yeah,
permit
the
transfer in
concealed,
5080.
Weapons permit fund was, we took money out of that fund to buy new tasers for the officers. The other ones were end of life. It's a 5-year contract, and of course, as you know well, can't get the parts, can't get the equipment. So we just revamped that contract, and we will use that funding to pay for it.
Entertain a motion to approve the concealed weapon permit fund transfer.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Hold on, Mr. Chairman.
And to amend and appropriate also, if you don't mind, sir. Transfer
add
the
that.
general fund and amend and appropriate.
Yeah, so moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain.
I'll abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. And then the second one was the one you were talking about, the electronic summons fund transfer for the licensing and the community policing data collection. Entertain a motion to amend and appropriate the funds from the electronic summons 13-003 to 3102-44-3040.
Make that motion.
Have a motion by Mr. McRoberts. Do I have a second? Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Abstain.
Aye.
So approved. Sheriff, anything else while you're up here?
Not that I can think of.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
The, one other item that I did mention, Mr. Bird, is the vehicle on the Mount Rogers. If you all want to discuss that later or sometime.
Yeah, I've got that in our budget committee package to discuss next week, but the sheriff's office has got a vehicle on Pala that they have declared surplus to come to us. The Mount Rogers Cigarette Tax Board has recently hired an individual to be their investigator and all that, and it could be a vehicle that we can, if the budget committee makes a recommendation, we'll bring back to you all to look at possibly considering the transfer to Mount Rogers to assist with getting our cigarette tax board up and running and functioning.
And I told Mr. Bird, as far as I know, that's a really good vehicle. It just didn't fit our needs anymore, so I think it'd make a good vehicle, if you're interested in it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Anything else under new business, Mr. Baird?
I do not have anything else.
Mr. Hankins, do you have anything?
Not that I want to address in my report.
Well, we'll move on to your report.
It's fairly brief this month. We're either putting in applications or waiting on approvals to be handed out. We're still waiting on broadband. Won't have an answer for you on that until late December. The comprehensive plan is moving along. The economic analysis is complete, and that'll be presented to the Planning Commission on Monday if you're interested in seeing what Muldrow and Associates has to say about our economics, particularly our leakage, where we lose money going outside the community. He'll go into some of that. Hill Studio is doing the plan, and they are aware that they're going to have to adjust some things based on the Blue Star announcement, and we've started going over some of that with them. Some of it may not be done in time for the plan to be adopted this year, so we may adopt the plan and then amend later as items are completed. On the capital purchasing, we've ordered all the fire trucks and the trailer. We've got one deposit yet to make on the Speedle truck, but everything is moving along, and expected deliveries are still in the time frame that we were expecting. Have put out a new request for proposals. Coy, you'll be happy to know that the rock boat proposals are out, so we should get those bids back next week and bring those back to you in early November. And we're working on getting the Apex sprinkler trailer complete, the order complete as well. Something new that you haven't seen is we've received notification from the state. You probably saw that one of the things that they're going to spend money on this year is, or in the coming years, with their federal ARPA money, is some tourism development. Those funds are administered through the Virginia Tourism Corporation, and every locality is going to be receiving some of those funds. I think it's population-based, but we don't know exactly how much that is yet. But we are working with the Wythe Convention and Visitors Bureau, since they're our destination marketing organization, to go ahead and put a plan together for how we use those marketing funds. They do have to be used for new attractions, so there's limits on what you can do with it, but it should pay dividends for years to come, because we'll be working to attract people from outside of the normal travel region to come here. We are still working on our personnel policy and the rail application in support of Blue Star. Got a couple of notes in there about 911. We did do panel interviews last week. The sheriff and the chief deputy sat in. I was able to call in. Our most senior dispatcher and Ms. Lang were in on those interviews, and I believe she's decided to extend 2 full-time employment offers and 1 part-time employment offer, but we've since had another dispatcher decide that dispatching is not for them. So it's 3 steps forward and 1 back in this case. So we are still advertising, trying to get additional dispatchers, but we are not yet at full capacity. We are working still to present you with a plan on recommended reorganization. Our lead dispatcher is one of those who has recently left, and so I'll have some recommendations for you based on what the Oversight Board recommends you consider. One of the things that you may be asked about, the fire departments and rescue squads have computers here waiting to go into their command vehicles so that they can access the dispatch system and the mapping in their trucks. And we've been working through the last 3 months trying to get the necessary upgrades on the computer system, the dispatch system and the mapping, to be able to put those in the trucks. We expected it to be complete with a second update today. It turns out it's going to need a third update, and that's going to be done quickly, but I don't have a firm date on that yet, so I can't tell you when. But once that is complete and everything is done on our end, we should be able to go ahead and train the departments and roll that equipment out so they have access to the electronic data that they need on scene. The one thing that I would ask for your action on, we're still waiting on the Attorney General's office to finalize approval of the lease at Rural Retreat Lake. We're not in a position where we can make the investments in the pool that you've budgeted in the current year until we know that we've got some sort of long-term operating lease with Department of Wildlife Resources. We think we've been pretty patient, but this has been a very long process. Would you like for us to ask our legislators to become involved and ask for the Attorney General's office to finalize this?
Yes. I would like to see a lease before God calls me home. And I hope I have a long time before that happens, but the way it's going, he may beat the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries.
Mr. Williams has done a good job of pulling the entire history over the last 5 years or so and putting that together to help us present our case. Appreciate he and Matt's work on that.
And he's chased it as far in Richmond as he can chase it without, our 2 senators and our delegate getting involved.
That's my opinion. I'll open it up if anybody has any disagreements, but I think we've been more than we've been over the patient. And the last time we, I guess, put this back up on the front burner, and you called up there, that was, 2 months ago, and they said that, oh, yeah, we found it. No, we don't have a problem with it. It looks good to us. And, every month, well, I won't even say month, every year they delay this, it's costing us more money in maintenance, preventive maintenance on that swimming pool. But to be a good steward of tax dollar, we can't spend a lot of money in that unless we've got a lease. So that's my opinion.
No, that's fine.
I mean, the Coy McRoberts pool at Rural Retreat Lake,
It needs some DLC. I believe.
but yeah, if you'll reach out to the senators and delegates, and if they can, I mean, of course now most of them are lawyers, it may delay it even worse. No offense, Scott.
I can start with the dentist if you'd like.
Yeah, reach out to Senator Pillion.
Well, the other thing related to Rural Retreat Lake is Kevin does have the preliminary numbers on the financial performance for the campground and the pool this year. I'm still reviewing those, but we should have those to be able to bring to you in early November.
I would venture to say it was another good year based on what I've seen.
That's accurate. I just don't have the numbers in my head yet to be able to tell you how good it was.
Anything else, Mr. Hankins?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bear, County Administrator report.
Just a few items. VDOT will be holding a virtual public hearing on the Progress Park Connector Road. If anyone would like to participate or leave comments in on that, that is, I believe, November 16th, that they will be doing that from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we've got a link in the book package, and we'll share the link on our website as well for that. Blue Star, just to give you an infrastructure update on it, where we are. Water, I have been meeting with the town and also had conversations with EDA that's looking about providing a lot of our grant funding for that. Last week we had a New River Regional Water Authority meeting. We discussed that. Currently, Town Manager Freeman and County Administrator Watson and I are to get together to talk about some of the expansions and how we do that. Wastewater, we have interviews with the Water Committee with our open-ended engineering firms this Friday to talk about our wastewater treatment plant expansion and also talk about our wastewater line conveyance system. The treatment plant, looking at a time frame of around 24, that it needs to be up and functional to handle the increased volume if the schedule stays as anticipated. The lines probably in between in this time and 24 will probably need some of the upgrades as the volume increases to go with them. Rail, the good news last week, we did receive, it's not a final plan confirmation, but we did receive an email confirmation. Our plan to run one rail to the site has been approved by Norfolk Southern, and the company will be doing all the storage and additional rails on their site, which is good for both of us, and the company was pushing hard to get that information. Our local surveyor here has been working on the plat. They're working on the plat for us. They're also working on behalf of the company on high-level topos and all those that they need for their construction. So all of that is continuing to progress. I make it seem real easy in what I said, but that's millions of dollars of investments and time and activities coming up over the next little bit. But if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them. But in general, you'll be getting these updates probably quarterly for the next 4 years. So any questions on Blue Star then? Not move on, STS. We've been working on it. We have received STS is the manufacturer that will be making a part for Volvo that was announced earlier this year. Mr. Falding and I recently reviewed a performance agreement that the JIDA has been preparing with the state, waiting to get the documentation finalized on it, and also a performance agreement with us to go ahead and get those adopted as well. No other updates on it. For information, I did list joint meeting dates, scheduled to have a joint governing bodies meeting with the town of Wytheville on November 29th. Joint meeting with the school board on November 30th. And the Apex Authority is talking about having a joint meeting, so maybe sometime in the first couple weeks of December, if y'all could be looking at your calendars and see if we can schedule something that week. I really don't want to do 3 joint meetings in the same week at the last week of November. So, but other than that, that's all I've got for the board tonight.
Does anybody have anything for Mr. Barrett? Thank you, sir. County Attorney, Mr. Farthing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things to report on. We've been researching a little bit about volunteer fire departments, working with some paid employees from the county, trying to figure out how that's supposed to mesh together. We made some progress on that today, for sure, with some responses from the local government attorney associations. So we hope to be getting some kind of memo together, giving you some opinion as to how we think that could possibly work. Working on animal control officer being armed. We think that needs to happen as appointing a person as a special police officer or constable of the peace, old terminology, but with the permission or approval of the sheriff, which I think he's willing to give. We figured out a plan to move forward on that. We just have to figure out what is that path? How do we make that happen? So that's what
Are you
we are.
talking about like an ESCOT, that type of?
We've called them special police in the past. And I remember years ago, we did one for Arlen. That's where I'm at this point. I don't know if I can give you much information about that. But I think if they're designated as special police and they have authority to carry a weapon if they're trained properly.
You may reach out to Chief Hash, because when they did that with their parking enforcement gentleman that retired.
Okay.
In the past, not been that many years ago that they went through that, so they might know
Okay.
the steps with that.
I appreciate that. Parking ordinance, we're still trying to figure that out as well.
Did you understand my response on that?
I did,
Okay.
yeah. So, we're in a population of less than 40,000 people. Our reading of the code indicates that we can't use a summons to issue the parking violations, and it may be more of some sort of parking ticket that we write that I think the treasurer's office will have a big role in how they pay it versus through the court, but we're still trying to figure that out, whether we can designate through the ordinance the court. So there's just not a lot on it. It's not real clear in the code, so we're trying to figure out what's the right way to do this. Also researching a little bit for the Apex Authority, creating an LLC for them to, I guess, manage the facility. We've not necessarily hit a wall. We're trying to understand the definitions of who can create an entity, whether a government authority can create a limited liability company or not. I'm trying to digest a memo that I got from my staff to understand that. The last thing I have to report on is the opioid settlement. Virginia Attorney General's office has reached some kind of large settlement arrangement with, I think, all the states. And I attended a Zoom meeting yesterday regarding that all localities in Virginia, they're hoping will sign on for X amount of dollars. And then they didn't really say how those dollars are going to be divided up. Our counsel for the opioid litigation sent an email, end of September, I think, indicating that this was coming and that he would have more information for us later. Because I saw that today, because I sent an email to him today asking for his recommendation. This is what I received yesterday. What can you tell us? So hopefully he'll give us a response. At the end of September, he indicated he wanted to talk to us and I guess share what their recommendation would be concerning that. But he acted like it was a positive thing, a good thing to do. But I asked him for a more formal recommendation as to what to do for the board. There is 2 resolutions that the group that met yesterday has proposed, or form resolutions to use. And the deadline is January 2nd. We have to opt in to say, yes, we'll participate. This is with 4 drug companies, one being Janssen, which is owned by Johnson & Johnson. I don't remember the other 3. This does not include the 2 companies that are in bankruptcy. Whatever that amount of money is that they would give would be structured over 9 to 15 years. A lot of that money up front, or the bulk of the money in the first few years, and then smaller payments over the next however many years it goes out. And then they had some proposal about how to divide it up. A very small amount of that money that would end up in the county's hands would be unrestricted to use however we want. They're saying 15% of whatever we receive would be unrestricted. 15% would be restricted to abatement for opioid issues, which they said is defined pretty broadly, and would possibly include reimbursement for money we've already spent for those types of things. So there's a lot of moving stuff going on right now, but hopefully we'll get more direction from our council on the opioid stuff. In the email today, I told him about our next 2 meetings, of what days they were, so hopefully he'll respond and ask to be able to either be here present or appear by Zoom or something to us to talk to us. That's all I have to report on it at this time.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Farthing?
Just
Yeah.
one thing, Mr. Chairman. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
No, go ahead, Ms. Lawson.
I was just gonna say, as far as the parking violations go, are we talking about Progress Park?
We're talking about the county parking ordinance, which I think is being enforced in Progress Park where trucks are parking along the side
That's
of the
what
road.
started,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
and possibly that road going up to Apex Center. I think there was people parking up there, but, I don't really know the answer to that question.
Okay,
But
that's,
Progress Park, yes, around Gatorade where the trucks are sitting on the side of the road, I think.
gotcha. Thank you.
If you could keep us up to date on what's going on with the Max Meadows Fire Department. I know you give a summary there, but if you could keep us in the loop there, because we're getting, tons of questions on our side.
It's a management structure issue, right? If you've got a volunteer entity and we have 2 full-time people from the county, really in mine and Don's mind, it's a chain of command issue. And then you have some liability and risk there too that might go with the mixed up chain of command. So we're trying to figure out, I think we can pass an ordinance that says this is all very vague right now. So I'm not saying this is what has to happen, but potentially pass an ordinance that says we create a county fire department. And then you're essentially contracting with the Max Meadows volunteer nonprofit organization to cover this area, right? I'm just not sure how to plug in the full-time people or the paid people into that. So we're trying to figure that out.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Anything else for Mr. Farthing? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Board of Supervisors time. Mr. Cook, I'll start with you.
All right, thank you. The only thing that I have is, we've got this, company coming in out of Progress Park. It's, got contract, Department of Defense, so we got 2 flagpoles sitting out there at the entrance, and they still don't have flags on them. Can you, tell me how much time it takes to put a dang flag up, Mr. Bear?
Staff has started putting those flags up. They were there
As
today.
of,
Mr. Smith confirmed the flags were there today.
all right, thank you, then I have nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Smith?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I know last week, or our last meeting, I'm sorry, we talked about the new business coming into town, and we were talking about the housing issues that we may be facing as a county. I would like for the board to reconsider the Route 9452 sewage project. I think it happened 2019, 18, somewhere back in that time frame. The phase 1 would go down 52. It would encompass the Lead Mines Rescue Squad, which would solve one of our problems there, but it would extend it on down 52. That could possibly help 2 different groups develop some areas for some housing for the area. So I would ask the board just to reconsider that, to have Pete and boards to reevaluate it and get us some up-to-date numbers on that. So that's the first item, Mr. Byron. I don't know what we need to do.
I think about information, I can go back and have Pete and Boards pull out their previous thing that they did and get it to the water committee, to bring to the full board.
How far was that proposed to go down 52?
The original proposal was for a pump station to be down there at the Church of God, below the rescue squad down through there, which would serve a gravity feed area basically from the trailer park that's just above the rescue squad all the way down to that area. And they could also go south on 52, maybe another quarter mile or so right through there. Then there was a line that ran cross-country that picked up, basically was the gravity feed line for other lines out 94. We've got some lines going out 94, but this would extend out 94 and then pick up a few houses on the south side of 94, and would give a sewer line running down to that pump station and coming up.
Because, and this might be what you were talking about, there's 1 or 2 subdivisions kind of planned or started.
So there's one that's already started. It's just past where the pump station will be, and I think the quarter mile Mr. Byron's referring to would cover that. The other one is, a gentleman has asked, when it would be coming that way because he's wanting to develop his property.
You know how many homes?
It could be up to 30, and it could possibly be more because he owns more property there. And I know me and Mr. Byron had talked, and some of the issues from the past about a conflict there shouldn't be a conflict because this individual that has asked about when the sewage is coming so he can develop the land, has actually purchased the land that was in question before.
Anything else, Mr. Smith?
Yes, I do. I sent an email to Mr. Bear about some property issues. Thank you for getting back with that, on that one. And I didn't send a second email. My apologies on that. And then Mr. Farley, thank you for the update on Mike Smith's fire department. The last two things I got is, Connors Valley, I know, do you know if VDOT has actually took care of the issue over that road?
I can follow up with them. I know they said they put on maintenance. I do not know if it's been removed.
Mr. Ennis, Miss Ennis, do you know if they took care of the big tree issue that was leaning over the road down there?
They were there today. I didn't know they took anything down.
Okay.
They did
Maybe
some
they must
bushwhacking.
have.
Okay,
Wondering what they was doing.
all right, we'll follow up on that. And then, Mr. Brown, the last thing I got is, right before I came up here today, I did get a complaint about the entrance of Lots Gap off of Chapman Road. When you enter off of Chapman Road on the Lots Gap, there's a big pothole right there that just keeps getting bigger. I'm sure it's due to the heavy equipment that's on that road,
Okay.
but, it is getting worse. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Lawson,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. McRoberts,
I don't have anything.
Mr. Horny,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Terry.
Nothing at this time, sir. Mr. Chairman, if I might, on Mr. Horny, thanks to the sheriff and also to VDOT, I think they got out there and worked on St. Peter's Road or tried to make the people aware of it. I know that it's continued to have problems from the reports I get, but they are trying to get it cleaned up as best they can.
They try.
Old Bank is still a problem too, so.
They try. I noticed this morning though, when I come through, I was like, there's so much, I don't know, manure,
Buildup.
whatever, on the road now, that you can't even see the lines.
I just have a couple of things. VDOT did, patch Pine Glade Road out next to Eldridge Farm. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. Apparently the potholes moved to Lots Gap, because they're about the same size. I know which one you're talking about. And Saturday night, it kind of worked out. I'd wear my black and orange for Halloween, but Saturday night, they named the football field a retreat after Coach Dean Ray. It was a well-attended event. It was pretty neat. Mr. Bear was there, and Miss Collins' brother, and it was a real nice event, and I appreciate the school board voting to let them do that. I know they worked on it for a couple of years. Even had fireworks in downtown retreat. So that's all I have. Next item on the agenda is a closed meeting. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session under 2.2-3711A1, discussion of a personnel matter, water, wastewater, and section 2.2-3711A3, disposition or acquisition of real property.
I make that motion.
Have a motion by Mr. McRoberts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now in closed session. Have a motion by Mr. McRoberts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We're now back in open session. Mr. McRoberts, if you'll read the certification.
Resolution certification of closed meeting, whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convened the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. I make a motion to accept that.
Have a motion by Mr. McRoberts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved. Anything else, Mr. Barrett?
No, sir.
Mr. Hankins, you have anything else? Mrs. Collins, you have anything? Does anybody else have anything to come before the board? Hearing none, we'll be adjourned.